Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS for the second day of the third round of the Euroformula Open season. The cars just taking to the circuit now on a gloriously sunny day to set the grid for the sixth race of the campaign. And you join myself, Ben Evans, on a morning where there are clear blue skies. Hopefully that is going to be the case for the remainder of the day, as the field all now heading out of the pits to get a sense of how the track has changed since yesterday's very, very lively race, which was eventually claimed by Felipe Drugovich in the RP Motorsport car. It's the Brazilian's fourth victory of the season, and he was able to prevail from Matteo Sciorrio after an incredibly eventful race where he was involved in a four-way scrap for the lead with Iorio, Marcus Siebert, who we watch now in the Campos car, and Cameron Das. Siebert and Das had a coming together exactly at this point of the circuit, Les Combes, and it was the American whose race ended immediately in the barriers. Siebert was able to continue round to the pits, get a new nose cone, and then rejoin the fray. It wasn't a great day altogether for the Campos racing team, because Alex Karkozic and Yves Baltas in the other two Campos cars had a coming together at Fagnes on the first lap of the race, which also eliminated Aldo Festante. So, frenetic race yesterday, and I'm sure that today is going to produce much the same in the way of action. It's Guilherme Samaya who completed the outright race podium, and Lucas Dunner, who was the top rookie for the Drivex team. So the entire field out on the track and circulating now. Good to see that none of the damage that was incurred in yesterday's incidents has proved to be terminal for the weekend. So they are all there, they're all circulating. They've got 30 minutes to play with. So we follow the Drivex car of yesterday's rookie winner, Lucas Dunner. And what we'd expect to see in this session is that they spend the first half of the session on a slightly older set of the Michelin tire that they all run with, just making sure the setup is exactly as they want it to be, getting themselves dialed in to the car's performance and how the track is this morning. And it'll be the final 10 to 15 minutes of the session where we'll see the lap time set, which will eventually form the grid for this afternoon's race. This train of cars accelerating through over the line. Oh, a snatch break there from Yves Baltas into the La Source hairpin. And his Fitcher, another driver who was very much in the thick of the action yesterday, as they then plunge down past the old pits complex towards Eau Rouge, and then that steep uphill climb through Radion on to the Kemmel Straight. Back of the train is Leonard Hogenboom, making his debut in the championship this weekend, and Hogenboom pulled off possibly the overtaking manoeuvre of the season so far on Janus Fitcher into Eau Rouge midway through yesterday's race. Another snatch break there from Yves Baltas, and he's been snatching the brakes a couple of times as he gets a bit of heat into the Michelin tyre. The field then running downhill towards the Bruxelles hairpin. It's the yellow-helmeted red and white Fortec car of Aldo Festante. Festante, who qualified a little bit off the pace yesterday and then didn't really get much of a race at all, caught up in the entanglement at Fagnes on the first lap. He will be hoping for much better over the course of proceedings today. So no lap times set as yet, as Ben Viscal, Teo Martin Motorsport car, backing right out of the throttle. The cars navigate the Fagnes complex. They're out really at the far extremity of the circuit, the Cours Poul Frère, and then Stavelot before the blast back towards the pits via Blanchimont. A great thing for the drivers of the Spa circuit, a real chance to open up the throttle. It's a great circuit to drive, as we saw yesterday, really producing some brilliant racing, not least because these long flat-out sections of the circuit mean that in terms of setup, they have to try and take as much front and rear wing out of the car as possible, make it as slippery as possible in a straight line. And that means that possibly more than some of the other circuits we visit, the drivers are then having to rely on really that balance between aerodynamic and mechanical grip through some of the corners. field all accelerating through to complete their first timed lap of the session. There is the championship leader, Felipe Drugovich. Another race win, pole position to his credit yesterday. So further extending his lead in the championship over Mateusz Jorio. Drugovich, who did the double in Paul Ricard back in May, won the first race of the season at Estoril. Will he do the double again this weekend in Spa? Certainly, yesterday's race was really as close as his rivals have got to him all season, with the exception of that battle with Marcus Siebert in Estoril. Drugovich claims his line into Les Combes. It's the pad, you can just see the cars starting to slide as the drivers hit the throttle as early as they can, and then continuing to run on downhill. Quickest car in the session thus far is Cameron Dass, and the Carlin team have been in a rich vein of form all weekend. Cameron Dass, but for that coming together with Marcus Siebert, looking in contention, well in contention for victory yesterday, both in terms of racecraft and outright pace. Marcus Siebert likewise in the Campos car as Viscau runs wide through Pouhon, and he'll just wait for the end of the AstroTurf before rejoining the circuit, which he does in front of Yanis Fitja. Then accelerating out of Stavelot on towards Blanchimont once more. So the times at this stage of the session don't tell us an awful lot. I think it's interesting to see who's looking comfortable this morning and maybe who is still just chasing getting the car exactly to their liking. It is Cameron Dass, who is currently quickest from Christian Hahn. And Hahn was looking very good in the race yesterday, but had to start from the back of the grid after an incident in qualifying, so he will be aiming for a Trouble 3 session as this gaggle of cars, which comprises about 2/3 of the field, all accelerates through. Cameron Dass, who's at the tail of that train, is remaining the quickest driver in the session from Felipe Drugovich, then Christian Hahn and Michael Ben-Yair. Guilherme Samaya now goes fastest. It's Felipe Drugovich accelerates out of Eau Rouge. All the field, the floors of the car just scraping on the surface of the track as the two Fortet runners, Aldo Festante and Callan Williams, run line astern down the Kemmel Straight. Viscau glides to the inside of Yves Baltas. Already, we are rapidly approaching the 1/3 stage of the session. I'd anticipate that they will be doing this lap and then probably pitching in at the end of the next one. Also for the drivers, this is a good sense of just understanding how well they're able to perform in traffic and follow their rivals. Yesterday we saw in the races that because of the relatively low levels of downforce the cars were running, it was possible for them to run a lot closer to each other than we've seen in particularly Estoril. It's a slight mistake through Pouhon for Aldo Festante, not quite to the extent of Ben Viscau from a lap ago, but it means that the Italian is unlikely to be improving his lap time on this occasion. Baltas just dips a wheel onto the AstroTurf. Lightning reflexes, that's with all these drivers to correct it. As Callan Williams moves around his Fortec teammate, accelerating towards Blanchimont. And they, not unsurprisingly, give each other plenty of space and due respect. The last thing you want to be doing is tangling with your teammate during a qualifying session. So on the brakes, down through the gears, as Ben Viscau now goes fastest in the session, 2 minutes 15.741 from Felipe Drugovich, then Guilherme Samaya third, Cameron Dass fourth, and Hogan Boom in fifth, as Mateusz Jorio briefly second. It's now Guilherme Samaya, who we've not really seen much of, who goes fastest in the session. Lucas Dunner second, Viscau third, Jorio fourth, Marcus Siebert 5th, Christian Hahn 6th, Felipe Drugovich 7th, Cameron Dass 8th. I think those lap times more reflective probably of the fact that the cars we've all been following have been maybe tangling up with each other a little bit. Wheel just hooked over the curb from Yves Baltas, certainly really pushing. He's still got a little bit of time to find, I'd suggest, as Hogenboom, impressive debutant yesterday. He jumped the start, but these Formula 3 cars, Laura F312s, have always historically been pretty hard to get off the line. And after serving his drive-through penalty with safety cars and the like, plus just the frosty of the dicing, was able to eventually get himself back into the mix and into the points. So this Fitcher just pulls out of that lap. And what some of these drivers might well be doing is focusing on individual sectors at this stage of the session, not necessarily wanting to string a whole lap together and show their hand to their rivals. It's also an opportunity to just pick up some of the racing lines that some of the other drivers are using, see what's working for them, consider whether or not it might be something that will be worth trying in the second half of the session. And we're rapidly approaching the second half of the session now, so as I said earlier on, wouldn't be entirely unsurprised if we saw a few of them dipping into the pits at the end of this lap, because a tour of the SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS circuit, 2¼ minutes, but they're all going to go through and complete this one. So it's going to be a fairly narrow window of opportunity in the second phase of the session. It's Felipe Drugovich through and across the line. Callum Williams is who goes quickest, 2 minutes 14.897. Viscal second, Hogenboom into third, Cameron Dass fourth, Alex Karkozic fifth, although Guilherme Samaya posting another good time at 2 minutes 14.834. And Guilherme Samara has been very impressive this year in that with each and every race he has got better and better and further up the order and into the mix. Oh, somebody having a bit of a moment. That is Aldo Festante having a big lock up into the chicane. Another look at it. Fortunately, the asphalt runoff area means that that doesn't mean end of session or worse. So just shy of 17 minutes to go in this qualifying session for the 6th race of the Euroformula Open season. Championship leader Felipe Drugovich has been the master in qualifying this year, just pulling a lap out of nowhere late on in the session. Another driver who's been getting better and better with each and every event has been Callum Williams, and he was in the points yesterday, fighting well up inside the top 10 in what was a fairly ferocious wheel-to-wheel battle as Michael Benyaya and then Hogenboom move around Ben Viscal. Yesterday was the first real misfire of the season for Viscal. It wasn't that he was that far adrift of the pace, but he didn't claim the rookie honours. He wasn't really in contention for the podium fight, but I'm sure that he and the TMRT Motorsport team will have been working hard overnight, looking at the data, thinking about what they could do differently for today's race. I think of far worse ways to spend a Sunday morning than qualifying a Formula 3 car around the SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS circuit. It's a great challenge for the drivers, really enjoyable, rewarding track. For example, the Blanchimont corner there, you see as they turn in, they've got that camber that just carries them through the corner as they now all peel into the pit lane. This is the point where the session takes a little bit of a lull for about 5 minutes or so while they bolt on a fresh set of the control compound Michelin tyre. When they do re-emerge, what we'd expect to be seeing is that they'll take probably 2 laps to just warm the tyre up appropriately through its heat cycle, and then they'll have 2 or 3 laps where they can really go for it in terms of setting a lap time. Well, continuing on his way for one further lap is Guilherme Samaya, the quickest driver in the session. Samaya has got the benefit of a completely empty circuit. runs along the Kemmel Straight on the brakes into Les Combes. The engine note just dips as he turns in, uses the aerodynamic grip available to him, and then downhill towards the Bruxelles hairpin. Just balances the throttle, can't be too greedy. We've seen a couple of wayward moments through this section of the track yesterday, and then out just to the edge of the AstroTurf. Lovely shot there of the driver's technique in full flow. You see Guilherme Samar is looking ahead up the road, because essentially the racing driver is always focused really on what's to come rather than what they're doing right now. And actually the art of driving the corner is almost muscle memory. It's about how the car exits the corner, how it sets up for the next section of the circuit, and that's what they'll be focused on. And you talk to the drivers, they'll all say that each and every lap is a chance to learn something, even if it just unlocks a couple of thousandths of a second. Those couple of thousandths of a second could be absolutely crucial, certainly in terms of forming the grid and maybe getting a run on arrival during the race. So Samar almost certainly to peel into the pits at the end of this lap as he turns out of Blanchimont and then winding on to the bus stop chicane. He will at this point exit stage right and into the pit lane, which is where the rest of the field is waiting, and that's exactly what the Brazilian does. Just brings the car down to the pit lane speed limit, which feels incredibly slow for the driver after the sort of pace they've been running around the track. 243 kilometers per hour in several cases. But then slowing that right down into the pit lane. That's if you're standing in the pits, it feels plenty fast enough indeed. So the Fortec team at work. You can see absolutely brand new Michelin rubber bolted on to Callum Williams' car. Samar just wheeled back into position. That car will be hoisted up onto the jacks. The laptop immediately proffered just a chance to download some data, analyse what's been going on. Maybe see if there's anything that could be just done a little bit differently. Terciorio, second in the championship. Get the feeling that for the Brazilian, the first victory is not too far away at all. After a learning year last year with the Campos team, he switched to the Carlin squad, and with great effect. He's had 4 podiums in the first 5 races. 3 of those have been as runner-up. And all the while, he's been steadily netting a hatful of points, because you never know, particularly after today. We've still got 5 race meetings to go for the Euroformula Open, so there is a lot of racing ahead of us.
Now we know that we have a very good set of time for the race.
A little bit of a debrief for Janis Fitje. Driver was on the podium multiple times last year with the RP Motorsport team, really leading the Drivex charge this year. And he and Lucas Dunn are proving to be a pretty potent pairing with Christian Hahn in the third of the Drivex cars, also getting better with each and every race. Another driver returning to the championship this year and really reaping the benefits of having learnt the circuits and the cars last year. Alex Karkozic, another driver we saw on the podium a couple of times in 2017, and also another driver who switched teams, moving to the Campos team. Time for Paul Ricard, and Karkozic has had really great pace, always has done, but it's just a case of that translating into that lucky, well, not lucky, but just the race weekend where everything goes in your favour. And I think once that happens, he will be somebody who will also be in contention for victories. So all the while that the cars are poised in the pit lane, the clock continues to tick downward. Yves Baltas also focused on the job ahead. An engine starting to get fired up because it is a long lap here at SPA-FRANCORCHAMPS, and therefore you need to leave enough in reserve that you have to bail out of a lap or abort it for whatever reason, that you've got a margin of error to at least try and post another time. Baltas waiting for the signal from his engineers to get back underway. Mateusz Jorio and Alex Karkozik, the two cars that have left the pit lane and are circulating. Marcus Siebert also waiting his moment. And Siebert, who had a difficult weekend in Paul Ricard, immediately back on the pace yesterday, challenging for victories. He went all out for the win, fighting Cameron Dass into Les Combes. He got a couple of wheels on the AstroTurf and it just forced the car to understeer back onto the track into the side of Cameron Dass. It meant the American got ejected into the tyre wall, and Siebert with that damage to his nose cone. So the entire field is now out circulating. Aldo Festante leads a train of cars along the Kemmel Straight. So what we saw yesterday is it will take them 2 laps to really get the Michelin tyre up to its qualifying performance heat cycle. So the first lap will be relatively steady. The second lap, the pace will be increasing. And we might see a couple of final sectors that are looking very good. And then it will be into the flying times. Although yesterday, bulk of the improvements in qualifying came on the tyres' 4th or 5th lap. So that is suggesting that we could be in for a real shootout in the last couple of minutes of the qualifying session. So for now, the field winding their way down through Pouhon and into Fagnes. It's picking the line, not riding up over the curbs as we saw some of the GT cars doing yesterday. Christian Hahn, there he is in the dark Drivex car, tucked into the toe behind Yves Baltas in the Campos machine. Meanwhile, Jesus Pereira, the principal of the GT Sport organisation, busy in conversation in the pit lane. Onto the brakes, down through the gears for Yves Baltas and across the line. 7 minutes in the session remain. We've got one car into the pit lane. That is Mateusz Jorio, who has peeled in. So clearly something not quite to his liking. And actually, Cameron Dass doing much the same as well. So this could be a tactical ploy from the Carlin team. Seem to remember that they did this yesterday as well, as Jorio already re-emerging. But what it does do is just further reduce the window for the driver to set the time. But this is part of the learning process in the Euroformula Open, is that the combination of nature of qualifying session plus the tyre performance means they really only do get 1 or 2 shots in each and every session at putting in their best possible lap time. And it's a skill that they'll need to hone and develop as they move on through their motorsport careers. The importance of posting pretty much the perfect time in qualifying. It's Baltas out over the AstroTurf. That just puts him a little bit offline for the left-hander. And then the run on down to Pouhon, and Christian Hahn looking fairly anxious now to try and clear the American if he can. He looks to the inside into Pouhon. Baltas, though, has got the racing line, keeps his foot in. And this is always one of the real challenges in qualifying, is that do you try and pass the car right in front of you, or do you take the risk of backing right out of the throttle and trying to get a little bit of clear air? Also depends as well from Christian Hahn's perspective of just how much of a benefit he's getting in the toe from Yves Baltas through the fast sweeping sections of the lap. Well, clearly Hahn feels rather a lot, because as Baltas backs out of the throttle, so does Christian Hahn. And now Hahn powers his way past both of the Campos cars. Alex Karkozik also slowing down. Aldo Festante, however, no such concerns, and this is going to be a personal best lap of the session, almost certainly, for the Italian as he emerges from the chicane. He posted a good middle sector, but it goes away from a little bit in the final sector. In fact, 4/10 adrift of his best, so he remains in 15th position. 4.5 minutes to go. Guilherme Samar remains top of the standings. Whether or not that's going to be the case in 5 minutes' time, we shall see. And this for Ala Fastante is now the time where he's going to start to be winding up the pace a little bit. Down the Kemmel straight, he should have got the tyres warmed exactly as he'd want to. Michael Ben-Yah has just set his best lap of the session, remains in 12th, as Fastante some way off actually through that first sector. 41.3 for the Italian. Here come Ben-Yah and Christian Hahn. And neither driver posting improvements through sector 1. So it might be that they're not going to be improving massively on this lap, but it will be next time around. We shall see. Meanwhile, Alex Karkozic and Yves Maltas have also just peeled in and out of the pits. Makes me wonder whether or not some of the teams have just learned something about the heat cycle of the tyre, and that leaving it static for 30 seconds just prolongs or enhances that qualifying lap window. So we didn't see much work going on the way of setup adjustments during the mid-session pause, which suggests that those brief sojourns in the pits were more or less planned. So no improvements as yet for the second half of the session. 3 minutes remaining, as now we are starting to see the pace elevating, with a good first sector from Cameron Dass, a good middle sector from Michael Ben-Yah. Christian Hahn also set for what promises to be his best lap of qualifying. And after yesterday's incident, therefore probably his best lap of the weekend, as he and Ben-Yah run towards the final chicane. Hahn just foreshortening the distance to the chicane by a few metres, might buy him a couple of hundredths of a second as he peels out of the chicane across the line. And Ben-Yah goes 7th with a 2 minutes 15.4. Christian Hahn to 9th. The driver who's really on the move, though, as you can see at the bottom of your picture, is Cameron Dass, the American for the Carlin team. He's going to get in amongst a little bit of traffic here. There he is, the blue car, the 4th in this chain. And that's always the challenge, isn't it? Getting in and amongst the traffic, and that is going to hurt the American on this lap, I would imagine. We'll see. As he comes across the line, he goes 2nd anyway, at 2 minutes 14.8, but Das losing best part of a second through the final sector as he got in and amongst that chain of cars. So frustrating for Cameron Dass, because that was a great opportunity for improvement. Lucas Dunner then up to 3rd, Callum Williams in 4th, Viscal 5th, then Hogan Boom in 6th, Iorio 7th, 1¼ minutes to run. So this is going to be their final lap of the session. We've got a lot of the field, you have to say, in and amongst with each other, and they need to be really careful not to trip over themselves, because Lent Hogenboom to the inside of Cameron Dass, and Dass is going to have to try and turn across here and assert the line, and he can't, and that could be really important for the American, because Lent Hogenboom passing him in the toe along the Kemmel straight. Meanwhile, Felipe Drugovich, it's not news, has just set a purple sector through the first third of the lap, which is exactly what you'd expect to see from the championship leader. Always, in the way that Harrison Scott did last year, just seems to be able to find that space on the circuit exactly when he needs to. So Hogan Boom and Das plummet down through Pouhon. There is Felipe Drugovich. He's coming towards the end of the second sector now. Janis Fitja has just set the fastest middle sector of the session. No, he hasn't. That's gone to Felipe Drugovich, 57.237. And Felipe Drugovich is on course for a pole position lap, maybe. The checkered flag has come out. Drugovich through the first 2 sectors, the quickest man on track. Is he going to get entangled with Lucas Dunner through the chicane? I think the Austrian is just far enough ahead of him, as it comes down to a single lap shootout in qualifying here in Spa. Drugovich gets the power down as they all accelerate through across the line. The order is going to continually shuffle. And Drugovic does go fastest at 2 minutes 13.1, a second quicker than everybody else in the field as the entire pack surged through across the line. Got the last couple of cars due through. And once more, it is Felipe Drugovic who has pulled it out of the bag when he needed to in qualifying. Alex Karkozik then into second position. Bent Fiskal third. Marcus Siebert into fourth. Lucas Dunner fifth. Guilherme Smeyer sixth. Yanis Fischer seventh. Not a great session for the Carlin team. Matteo Siorio in eighth. Cameron Dass in 10th after we saw his final lap getting interrupted. Callum Williams into ninth. Christian Hahn and Michael Benyar are still going to get one more crack at it, but neither driver, and Aldo Fastanti as well, none of those drivers looking likely to improve. So Felipe Drugovic, half a second up on Alex Karkozik. The end of what was a really strange session. They all spent most of the time tripping over each other, particularly through that final lap or so. I think it was the Carlin drivers who came off worst with that. Grid positions which really do not reflect their latent pace. Sets us up for a very entertaining race later on today as well, which is worth looking forward to. So here then is a look at how they've qualified. Felipe Drugovic, pole position once more for the Brazilian. He will share the front row with Alex Karkozik. Then Bent Fiskal, the top rookie, in third alongside Marcus Siebert. So good qualifying for the Campos squad. Lucas Dunner well up in fifth, leading the Drivex charge alongside Guilherme Smeyer. Yanis Fischer in seventh alongside championship challenger Matteo Siorio, Callum Williams and Cameron Dass on the fifth row. Then Michael Benyar and Christian Hahn. And Token Boom and Yves Altas with Aldo Fastante completing the field. We will be back at, well, the green flag lap rather is at 1:20 Central European time this afternoon. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, it's goodbye from Spa.